Welcome back to our preview of Tuesday's election, and there are a number of House races to look for in our area. Let's start in New Jersey with the Democrat Mikey Sherrill versus Jay Weber, the Republican candidate there. Your thoughts?
Mikey Sherrill, she's a foreign rule candidate. This is one of the most hotly contested races, not just in New Jersey, but in the country. This particular district has been held by Republicans since 1984. The seat is now going to be open. 4 years ago, 6 years ago, 8 years ago, you talk about a Democrat running for this seat, you would have been laughed out of the room. Mikey Sherrill is now ahead by 4 points. And I think that just speaks to the message and the enthusiasm of Democrats nationwide. We're the more progressive party. We're the party of ideals. We have the support of folks that want to be included in the process. This is why the Democrats have run more women, I believe, in history than they ever have run before. 49% of them have won. 79% of that 49 were the top vote getters in their race. We have dynamic candidates right now running New Jersey and nationwide.
Historically, it's been Republican. Alexandra,
Sure.
Your thoughts on this particular one?
Well, so this is a district that's actually fallen prey to redistricting. This is a very Republican district. Otherwise, actually a district that's very supportive of the president. But once you included places like Montclair into that district, it became much more purple than it had been. So look, I think that Mikey Sherrill was among one of the more successful recruits for the Democrats this cycle. They had been attempting to bring in more veterans, more middle-of-the-road people, and even though that wasn't as successful in some of their primaries, where more progressive people ended up challenging some of those people, Mikey Sherrill was one of the ones that prevailed. That being said, Jay Weber's a fighter. This is a guy who was massively outspent in his primary, and he still won by a healthy margin. And this is a guy who is not quitting. He's out there every single day on the campaign trail. Whereas Mikey Sherrill, I think because she didn't really get a run for her money in the primary, and because this is sort of the first challenge that she's getting in this race with Jay Weber, these middle of the road positions are sort of coming back to haunt her. For example, she does not speak about immigration. That's a huge issue for a lot of the voters in that district, and that's something that Jay Weber is really focusing on. She said sort of timidly that she's not going to support Nancy Pelosi for speaker. Well, behind closed doors, there's videos of her saying that she's been the most effective speaker in decades. So who's the real Mikey Sherrill? Has she really been challenged? I think that Jay Weber is one to give her a run for her money.
Will impact be determined, Eric, by the independents, so those who are still undecided, you think, in this particular one?
Well, this is the age-old question in politics. Do you try to run a campaign to persuade swing voters to vote for you and not the other party, or do you try to energize your base? I think the pendulum is swinging right now towards energize your base, but again, it depends on the district. In a district like this, one of the wealthiest districts in the country, basically a Morris County Center district in New Jersey, and I worked there for 2.5 years. It's a pretty moderate district in my view, and I think the Republicans in this case may, in Weber, have maybe put out a little bit too conservative of a candidate, whereas the Democrats have a fairly moderate Democrat. She's ex-military, she's a former prosecutor. She checks off all of those boxes that you look for if you're a consultant looking for someone to run in a district like that. So, and I feel for Alexandria, like if you're an opera researcher in a case like this, to try to find negative material on a candidate like Mikey Sherrill is very difficult. And she has a money advantage, which is helpful. It's not determinative, but there are a lot of headwinds for Jay Weber in this race, and I think I would give Mikey Sherrill an edge.
All right, so let's talk about the House race between Leonard Lance and Democrat Tom Malinowski. Your thoughts on this particular one?
Just like most of the races in New Jersey right now, Leonard Lance has been in there, I believe, since 2006. He's received a challenge every 2 years. I think he's met his match in Tom Malinowski right now, former Assistant Secretary of State and Obama alum. He's raised a tremendous amount of money. The number one issue in this district looks like it's health care. Leonard Lance, I believe, voted roughly 70 times to either repeal or replace the Affordable Health Care Act. There's roughly 300,000 people in that district with pre-existing conditions. That vote is going to come back to haunt him. Those folks are going to come back to vote him out.
Your thoughts, Alex?
I think that in Congressman Lance, you find a true bipartisan congressman, a true gentleman, and that is something that is cited over and over again with the voters in that district, that they do see him truly as a problem solver and not as a partisan that's out there. And I think that reputation is going to help him come election day. You know, he has been out there. He's a part of the problem solvers caucus. You know, this is a guy that's not really talking about the hot button issues or taking out a more partisan viewpoint on some of these hot button issues. You know, this is a guy that's much more likely to be talking about building a tunnel up here than he is about building a wall. So he I think represents the needs of that district very well, and I think that there's a lot of reasons the voters are going to find a lot of reasons to keep him around.
Eric, let's go to the 11th district in New York. Dan Donovan is facing a serious little challenge, if you will, with the Democrat Max Rose. And let's talk about the possible Trump impact there, because Donovan is supportive of the president.
And he's supportive of the president because Staten Island, his district, is supportive of the president. And let's make no mistake here. Every candidate polls internally his district, and they put their finger to the wind, and they see which way things are going, and many of them will message, you know, according to what the polls tell them. And the polls tell you Trump is popular in Staten Island, Bill de Blasio is not. So Max Rose, he has not been, you know, full blast anti-Trump, and Donovan has kept, you know, mostly to Trump. He's been endorsed by Trump, and you know the Trump endorsement probably saved him in the Republican primary. But Max Rose has run an outstanding campaign. I don't think anyone in the establishment thought this was going to be close, and now it is going to be close. And Donovan does have quite a bit to worry about. I think he's still the favorite, but you know, Max Rose, again, another ex-military guy. You know, no one really doubts his credibility as, you know, as someone who is independent. He's not very progressive at all. He's a guy who said, you know, he'll vote against the Democrats when called for and vote with Republicans when it benefits Staten Island. I think that's the message that his district wants to hear.
Before we do go, we want to talk about something that's been going on in the last 2 weeks. Our country has seen acts of domestic terrorism in the forms of pipe bombs being sent to those who oppose one's political views, and of course the synagogue tragedy in Pittsburgh that some say was the result of divisive rhetoric coming from multiple places. How will this impact voter turnout, you think, on Tuesday?
Well, look, I think there's been several issues that will motivate voters to come out on Tuesday. I think, you know, Democrats view the caravan, which for what it is, refugees seeking asylum. A lot of Republicans view it as this takeover, which it obviously is not. I think it has little to do with the impact for Tuesday, that particular issue, but the domestic terrorism stuff, you know, it instills fear. It plays into, and not to make light of it, but it plays into the Trump playbook of stoking the flames of fear. But I think it'll have minimal impact.
Alexandra, your thoughts on this?
I mean, I have a decidedly nonpartisan view of this. I mean, both were, you know, abhorrent acts of domestic terror, and like any kind of terrorism, whether it's from abroad or it's here at home, you know, terroristic behavior is meant to alter our behavior. It's meant to make us change the way that we do things, and I hope that regardless of the results on election day, that these incidents don't have any effect on people's votes, and people go out there and exercise this precious right to vote, you know, in spite of these circumstances.
Eric?
I don't think they will have a great effect. I think basically in New York, New Jersey, the issues are Trump, taxes, the tunnel, which is an infrastructure issue, and health care.
All right, everybody, go to the polls, but to learn more about today's topics, go to our website, fox5ny.com. You can also like us on Facebook as well as follow us on Twitter. For all of us here at Fox 5, I'm Antoine Lewis. We'll see you next time for more Street Talk, and as always, thanks for the company.